Welcome. Welcome to the Processor Town Hall. This is the final town hall of the first town halls of 2023. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go through some slides. If you've been at the other 3 town halls we've done so far, you've seen some of these. I'm going to try to keep it really quick so we can open the floor to you all for comments, questions, and anything else you'd like to come up and tell us at the podium. I want to let you know that we are going to be doing more of these things. We are going to engage you guys more, give you opportunities to give us feedback, all of that as the year moves on. This isn't working. So we will just figure it out. McGregor, do you mind just clicking me through when I say next slide? Thank you. Next slide. Or not. We were going to do a big conference. It was going to be held yesterday and today. You guys probably heard me talk about it. We weren't able to do that as we were working really hard to divest from the State Department of Health from May to November 1st. As of November 1st, we are a standalone agency. That means we hold all of the functions that once were held by the State Department of Health. Legal functions, finance, HR, everything you can imagine, we hold those functions in-house now. So the buck stops with us. We are liable for all of those. I'm a direct appointee of Governor Stitz, and whichever future governor comes into office in 4 years, if they choose to keep me there, I will be a direct appointee of that governor. So if you ever have a complaint or a comment about me, that's who you go to, is the governor. And as such, this is, we are an executive branch agency. We are under the Public Safety Cabinet and Governor Stitt's cabinet. That could change with future administrations, just depends on the governor. I have great support from the current governor and his cabinet, and so that's a really good thing. We are able to get advice and support from the current governor. Okay, thank you. I feel like I was rambling there for a little bit. All right, I want to share a few things that we have going on. But getting back to the conference, we weren't able to quite pull it off, but that doesn't mean we won't pull it off. We are still moving forward with that. We are still going to do it. The goal is education. The whole point of a conference put on by a state agency is to do some education to the public, to our licensees, and just to open the doors so we can all come together and just learn. So I'm really looking forward to that coming together over the next year, but we're going to also do some roundtables, some webinars. We're going to do a statewide listening tour where we will come to every corner of Oklahoma and visit and come to your part of the state and do something very similar to this. And those will start in the fall. Many of you submitted questions on State Question 820, which, as you know, the vote is coming up on March 7th. I want to head those off right now, let you know that as a state government employee, there are ethics laws that preclude me from saying much about that state question. I can't give you my opinion. I do have a personal opinion, of course. Every single person has their own thoughts. But as a state employee on state time, I can't tell you if I would advocate for or against it. As the leader of OMMA, I will tell you that if it passes, we have to regulate the recreational industry, and that's what we will do, and we will do it by the letter of the law as listed in State Question 820. If the legislature comes in and changes any of the language, we will follow those laws as well. I do, as an Oklahoman, suggest everyone read the state question, not just this state question, anything you're voting on. Just read it. Read every single word. Don't just read the front page. Read every single word. Make sure you know what you're voting on before you vote, because I do think that will help answer many of the questions that you submitted. I think just even going through it line by line will help answer a lot of the concerns that you have. McGregor, please click on the transparency project. If you've been here through other sessions, you've seen this already, so I'm sorry this is a repeat. But this is something that is so, something new and exciting. It is the way that we are utilizing the data that we now have access to through our seed to sale tracking system. So NCS Analytics pulls that data and puts it into this dashboard that's accessible to you guys, to anyone that wants to look at it. It's on our homepage, and you can click, will you just hover over some of the information, McGregor, and let them see what you can look at? So this is updated weekly based on what's going on in Oklahoma at any time. Excuse me. And the things that will be updated soon that are not on there that you will be able to see are the things that we are going to be getting on the back end, which are that we are starting to receive on the back end, excuse me, which are the I call them flags, and I know that doesn't exactly describe it properly. Think of them as like red flags. So whenever we get all of this data, it helps flag some of the information that is outside of the norm. And when that information is flagged, that lets us know where we should inspect first, where we should do a deep dive investigation. The things that we're looking at will be, well, there are several different flags. We probably have 10 different flags, and what we're going to do is highlight the top couple of flags on here so you guys will all know, the entire industry, Oklahomans, anyone that's looking at this will know the top couple of flags that are being highlighted for us, so you'll know exactly what's happening. Now the point of this, and I want to just make it clear, the point of this is the fact that it's pulling data from our licensed businesses. We have over 11,000 licensed businesses in Oklahoma. We know that there are unlicensed illicit operators in Oklahoma. They're not putting data in here. We don't have their data to weigh. We get that. That's a completely separate conversation that's happening on a law enforcement side of things. This is the side where the conversation about how seed to sale tracking is not the silver bullet to fix everything. We know that. There are loopholes to everything. These flags help us find those loopholes and close them. And that is exactly what we're looking to do. And we will be highlighting that on this dashboard. Okay, back to the presentation, please. I'll get into some of the rest of this in a moment, but as processors especially, I want to make sure and plant this seed with you guys. I want to make sure that you're all registered with the proper regulatory authorities. You are the level of our licensees who deal with the most chemicals. And you have to make sure that you are using them properly and that you are registered with the proper regulatory authorities. We have some in the room here today. LP Gas Commission is in the back, and they will be open for some questions later if you guys have any. But I know that there are some of you that might not know that you were supposed to register with the LP Gas Commission, or may just have questions. So we've invited them, we've invited the fire marshal, and a few other regulatory authorities. But we've heard a lot of stories about processors who maybe have unsafe facilities, and I'm probably not talking to those people right now, but we could use your help as the good operators, identifying where the unsafe operators are. Because as you can imagine, we're sending our inspectors out to every single facility. And I for sure don't want to send our inspectors into an unsafe facility where they're going to be harmed by unsafe chemicals that are not properly regulated and not properly registered. I want to make sure everyone in this room is following the rules. I'm sure you are. Help us make sure to spread the word, ensure that everyone who is a processor is properly registered. There we go. Licensing numbers. I'm sure you guys see these on our social media and your emails. I'm not going to read every number to you. I want to show you these maps that we put together, though, these heat maps. This is a map that shows the dispensaries throughout Oklahoma. processors. And many of you I saw in a previous session, and you are growers, so you know what this looks like. And you work with growers, so we're gonna move on to talk about excise tax. The 788 excise tax is collected at the dispensary level. %. This is the portion that we are responsible for and we are accountable for. The dark red line you'll see is lower than the previous 2 years. The excise tax goes to fund the regulatory body. So OMMA is the main regulatory agency over the medical marijuana industry. So we license patients, the industry, and then we follow up with compliance. There are other regulatory agencies, of course, that touch the industry, such as LP Gas Commission, Fire Marshal, OB&DD, DEQ, Water Board, many others. But we are seen as the main regulatory authority. So these funds do come to fund our operations first, and then as Chip Paul and the writers of 788 put into 788, 75% go to general fund for education and 25% to drug and alcohol rehab via the State Department of Health. Now the next piece is the part that we are not held accountable for, and that is, but we do like to make sure you guys know about it, and that is the state and local tax portion. That is the portion that your cities and your counties collect at the dispensary level and expend in various ways. And this is the piece, I think it was brought up in the last session, and I think it's worth repeating. This is the piece that you can affect most by going to your county commissioners or going to your city council meetings and asking about how these funds are expended. But this information is, we publish this just like we publish our information. So I hope that you are following it and keeping track of where these funds go as well. We're often asked, especially on social media, about how we utilize the funds that we bring in through the excise tax and the commercial and patient license funds. And that's a very fair question, so I don't fault anyone for wondering that. We try to put out as much information as possible, and we will continue doing that, especially now that we're a standalone agency. We are with our autonomy comes so much more opportunity to just be open and transparent, and we have a fresh start. So with that, I'm going to show you guys some numbers now, but as we move forward, we'll be putting more numbers out, I would say pretty regularly. And, excuse me, we also had our very first ever standalone agency budget hearing. I haven't mentioned this yet, but so it's fresh news. Last week with the Senate HHS committee, we had our very first ever budget hearing where they asked us questions about our budget. So things like that will be happening where you guys can be engaged with us on the legislative side through budget hearings as well. Okay, so you'll see that the darker, the blue is the excise tax collections. The lighter green is patient license collections, and the darker green is commercial license tax collections. And what you see on the screen represents all 4 years that OMMA has been in existence. Fiscal years. So a state fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30th. The most recent fiscal year was fiscal year 22. And I'm not sure why we tried to fix it again during the break and it didn't. Yeah, it's every single time it's some, yeah, It just takes off certain numbers for whatever reason. So I will just read you those numbers. All right. This is the OMMA budget breakdown currently. 49.5% is going to personnel costs, which is salary and retirement and benefits. 39% is going to contracts, which is contracts are quality assurance lab, seed to sale tracking system, data analytics, licensing portal, license card printing, mail services, office space leases, and vehicle leases. The darker blue is IT, which is 7.9%, which is IT equipment, rental, computers, phones, telecom equipment rental, data processing software, and IT equipment maintenance. The lighter blue is 3.2% for supplies and equipment, which is everything you can imagine, such as office supplies. Then the little sliver is 0.04% for other, which is will include travel and other minor expenses, such as travel reimbursements and mileage reimbursements for traveling around the state. We are working to reconcile everything from the past several years. We have our first ever CFO in place who has his job, he and his team have their job cut out for them to reconcile everything from the past several years. Rules and legislation. Today is the bill filing deadline for the next legislative session. And we are looking forward to looking through all the bills. We have our legislative liaison, Ashley Crawl, who will be out at the legislature and will be tracking all bills dealing with medical marijuana. We make sure to put all of those on the website so that you can find them easily. There are always a lot of bills filed, and I don't think this session will be any different as far as bills dealing with medical marijuana. And I think that they will range from, I think they will just range. I think they will vary, and we're already seeing that. So I'm going to first talk about bills that passed last session that are already in effect, and then we'll touch on a few bills that have been filed already for the next session. But first, as you know, November 1st, we became a standalone agency. That required us to create our own section of the administrative rules, the Oklahoma Administrative Code. We are now in Title 442. And when we created that title and filed those administrative rules on November 1st, we integrated House Bill 3019, Senate Bill 1367, and Senate Bill 1737, all of which passed during the previous legislative session. They passed and were signed into law. And so they are now part of our rules. But then we also, this fall, pretty simultaneously, opened our permanent rulemaking process. The permanent rulemaking process is much longer. There's this long window in which the permanent rules go through promulgation and then the public comment period, which was from November 15th to December 15th. And on December 15th, I know many of you came to the Capitol to provide public comment. We received about 21 verbal comments and then 108 written comments. So we are in the phase of going through every single one of those so that we can integrate them into the rules. Then we submit them to the legislature. They are put into the omnibus bill and sent on to the governor by the end of legislative session. And the permanent rules will go into effect by next fall. Administrative rules are cumbersome and nuanced, and to be quite honest, pretty boring, but they're very important. So make sure you're paying attention, make sure you're following the entire rulemaking process. If you skip one step, you might miss something important that affects your business. I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys that. All right, this screen, I'm gonna just leave it up there so you can take a picture or take some notes, but these are some of the proposed rule changes that we have in our proposed permanent rules that would specifically affect processors. And as I mentioned on our website, we do keep up with all of the bills of interest. So McGregor, can you link to that or click on that link? Thank you. You can find this all the time on our website. So if you are on your own, you're a small business, you're not following legislative session closely, if nothing else, you can find the bills and read them on our website. And we link to the state site, correct? Thank you. And you can always watch Barrett explain how the legislative process works. Anytime. Thank you, McGregor. All right, and as I stated, today is the deadline. So the legislature has all kind of deadlines. They list them on their website if you're ever interested. Many of them, though, are kind of deadlines if you know how to get around the rules. And today's one of those, but depends on if you're in the House or Senate, I guess. It's a real deadline in the Senate. It's a kind of deadline in the House. So the point is, they're supposed to all file their actual language today. So there are lots of bills out there with a lot of language. Ashley pulled some of those bills that are processor specific, and you'll see a few of them up there. So these are bills with actual language in them that would go through the legislative process in the upcoming session that would affect you guys. So Senate Bill 117 by Senator Bergstrom. It requires commercial processor applicants and licensees to get a permit, a special permit from the OWRB prior to engaging in commercial processing. And then Senate Bill 134 by Senator Rogers would add a temporary license step prior to annual licensing. Senate Bill 264 by Senator Garvin would add process validation as a mandatory process for processors. Were you guys aware of these bills? Yeah, 58. So just know that there are already bills being filed that would affect the medical marijuana industry. Two of the three of these senators are from rural areas of the state. So they're probably hearing from people who, and their constituents who are having, they may only hear from constituents who are struggling with getting along with people in the medical marijuana industry. That may be the only thing they're hearing. They may never hear a positive story about the use of medical marijuana or the medical marijuana industry. So if these bills make you mad, you gotta counteract them with positive stories. If you are a mom and pop business, you gotta go talk to your legislator and tell them your story. Okay, that's my advice for the day. All right, Lee Rhodes' team put together a few slides to just give a quick update on what's going on with the lab department. It's a department that is always getting a lot of attention for good reason, and Lee and his staff and his team have been working incredibly hard this year, and so I wanted to highlight some of the things they're working on. Yep, there we go. All right. when Lee's team goes out to do inspections, they spend 3 to 4 days on site, and they dig deep at every inspection. They look at all the SOPs and all the instrumentation, and they are going to spend weeks after digging in on everything. They're not just going to walk away at the end of that inspection either. Every inspection either leads to an action plan on things that need to be fixed, or there's always some sort of action plan. They've done 2 pre-licensure inspections this year. They've had 4 thorough investigations with 1 license surrendered. 3 of those investigations are still in progress, and they have done 3 recalls on marijuana and marijuana products. They refer many issues out to other departments within and outside of OMMA, including our compliance department, our enforcement and investigations division, Department of Ag, Fire Marshal, and many other departments throughout state government. Starting in May, many of you know and experienced firsthand the bottleneck that was created at the lab level in metric. Lee's team is the one that handled the overwhelming majority of that and handled 904 metric tickets, and they're down to about 80 of those a week. So they were able to identify what a lot of those bottlenecks were created by and work on those pretty quickly once we identified them. So now that we're on the other side of the majority of those issues, we're able to actually look at the data that we're getting from metric and analyzing the outliers and figuring out what's happening, identifying why some labs are putting out very high potency numbers, why some labs are turning out different pesticide or heavy metal numbers than other labs. And Lee's team is able to focus more on those outliers and really hone in where they should be investigating. It's pretty amazing, actually. It's information we've never had access to, and we finally are able to use data to inform where we should be investigating. And lab standardization is something that, as I've said before, Lee has been working on and wanting to work on prior to the legislative mandate requiring us to work on it. But as of right now, we are working to meet or exceed the legislative mandate that was handed out during the last legislative session. Excuse me. So you'll see a little information up here that tells you exactly what his team is doing, but it did begin in November of 2022. In the end, all labs will be utilizing standard procedures. They will have standard equipment and standard collection, sample handling, and across the board, there will be standard procedures, which will cut down on any kind of, on the discrepancies we're seeing in lab testing right now. Once we get this done, we actually will be ahead of the game as far as lab testing goes in the cannabis space. This is an area that all cannabis states, whether medicinal or adult use, are struggling with across the U.S., I would say. All right, quickly before I wrap my part up, I'm going to go through a compliance department update. Our compliance department was one that when I came in, it was woefully understaffed for the big job that there was ahead of them. And bringing in the right leadership for that department was key. We have a great leader in charge, Michelle Reddish. She's going to speak to you guys a little bit later, but I'm going to go over some highlights that she provided on what they've been able to accomplish this year. We set a very large goal of making sure to get out to every single licensed business at least one time between April 2021 and May of 2022, and they achieved that goal. Can you please put up the slide, McGregor, showing the regions? Well, it's if you were licensed between those times, we got out to your facility. Just in case you're interested in what the regions are, this shows you. Thank you. Depending on how many licenses you have, you may have never seen an OMMA inspector until the last year or year and a half. Now, hopefully, all of you have met one at least one time, because we are getting out. I'm sure the inspections, hopefully they've gone well. We are still training our inspectors. We know we have room to grow on training. There's always room to grow. There's always room to move forward, and we know that. We're aware of that, and we take feedback from you guys, and we're working on gathering more feedback from you guys on those inspections. As rules change, we update our training to make sure that it reflects that. But we're very proud of the progress this team has made in the past year, and we're very proud of the high quality we've been able to bring onto this team. Honestly, we've brought some amazing inspectors onto this team. I hope some of you have had the chance to talk with some of them. Operational status visits are still statutorily required. These are where we send inspectors out just to make sure that licensees are operational. They are required to be done at separate times. For some reason, we're looking to clean that up statutorily and allow us to do it at the same time so that we are not duplicating efforts, but we did over 11,000 of those in 2022. This thing is not working. There we go. And to give you a big picture view, we have 84 compliance inspectors out in the field across Oklahoma at this point. We have 7 inspectors that are focused on our complaints team. This is a new team. Excuse me. A new team made up of former law enforcement and military personnel who dig deep into complaints and go out to help build files and investigate complaints. 8 auditors for a total of 99 field staff. This is a fantastic number. We have grown quickly. I don't even know exactly how many, and never really got a straight answer when I first started, so I will just say this is amazing to see, and I'm really proud of this team. And a few highlights that you can look at if the screen lets you will be about mostly how we're utilizing the data that we're receiving from Metric and NCS Analytics together. We're looking at flowering time. So as an individual plant is tracked, we are looking at a flag that identifies, the flag that, I'm very easily distracted, especially right now. So this flag indicates that the flowering time was either longer or shorter than what we would expect. And so we will be flagged to that. Another one will be harvest weight discrepancies. And it's a flag that will indicate when dry weight and waste weight are more than what was originally recorded. Those are just examples, though. We will have so much more information coming. And our compliance team has been in training this week. They did metric training the first half of this week, and they were in classroom training and then field training the first half of the week, and they've been doing training with NCS Analytics to utilize the data, as I said, and we are looking at ways to use it internally and had a suggestion on how finding ways to use it externally as well. So lots of great things coming. I am now going to open the floor. What we will ask you to do is state your name when you come to the mic. Gilbert will say your name, and Gilbert is going to watch the clock. So if he has to interrupt you to let you know that your time's up, he will do that. But I don't think we don't have that many people here, so we will likely be able to give people another chance to come up and speak if your time is cut short. So did I forget anything?
Please be sure to speak into the mic.
There we go.
All right, first up we have John Kumbis.
I was still writing down stuff on my little notepad. Once again, like I said, in all these, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate this. It's a step in the right direction, but we still got a long way to go. We all know that. Labs. Lee, I appreciate you working hard. I'm glad that our state wasted $10 million on Metis. That's always great. But Lee, I have a question for you, and I need you to answer this. I'll get you the mic. Because I'm on a live, so it's recording. Oh, may Lee answer my question, please? I only have 2 minutes left. So per metric, if we bring in a liter of oil, distillate, whatever, per metric, that's got to be a batch. And per metric, we're supposed to use that whole liter of distillate that day. If we use it tomorrow because we couldn't finish what we were doing today, that per metric is another batch. Does that make sense to you? May he answer?
I think I know what you're saying, John, and it's something that we've been kicking around. Although I hesitate to give you a definitive answer right now because I may say the wrong thing.
It's okay. I won't.
I do know what you're talking about. It is something we've talked about. Is it feasible or logical that you finish everything you're doing with something on one particular day?
Correct.
So I need to know a little bit more about, are you still making that batch or are you making something out of that batch? Those are two different things.
I'll email you.
Okay.
I'll email you more.
That'll be fine. About all I can really say now is that we have had talks about this. I don't know that we've actually settled on this. It's actually something that we really need to involve our legal team on before I make any sort of interpretation of that whatsoever.
Okay, thanks. One more question. Is that good? We're good?
We do, yeah. I can confirm that we need more info from the industry.
Okay.
So thanks for bringing that.
I'll send you an email. The other thing, when we deliver to a lot of dispensaries are like, oh, you have to have the batch number typed out on your metric manifest, but we can't do that. So is there talks with Metric on getting that fixed? Because now we have to handwrite them in, which takes more time. So hopefully we get that fixed, and hopefully just Metric goes away. But that's all I really have to say, man. I appreciate you guys having me here all 4 sessions. It's been a labor of love, but hats off to all you guys. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I can say with confidence that we have a project with Metric to fix exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. That's been you quacking this whole time?
Yeah, sorry. People don't know why.
All right, next up we have Chris Taylor.
Hello? All right, there we go. One of my questions is, whenever we make deliveries, I do most of our deliveries for our company, and the wife has the transporter license that comes with the license, but she's not legally allowed to be in the vehicle with me. And I only knew this because of the new fines that came out that said that it's an unauthorized person in the vehicle. I use that as a teaching tool for my employees. I like to have every now and then one of them ride with me on deliveries to meet the customers, meet people. And I don't feel like I should have to license every one of those as a transporter agent just so I can take them with me. They're already went through all the background checks, everything to be an employee of mine. So that's something I would like something done with. And then my other question is about waste disposal. Our facility is all indoors. I built a fence around it, even though I didn't have to build a fence around it. I built this big steel container. It would take a cutting torch to get into. It's probably harder to get into it than my grow or my processing. And I was told that I wasn't allowed to use that container, even though it's inside an 8-foot fence, which is technically part of the property or part of the licensed business. So why can't I use my container? It's inside the fence, it's under cameras, no one can get in it if you don't have a key. It's labeled like it's supposed to be, but our inspectors told us that wasn't compliant because it was not inside the facility, which technically it is, because inside the fence is part of the facility. So that was my other question about that. Because I don't want to keep, if we run some bubble hash and there's plant material left, I don't want that sitting there for, 90 days? We have to every 90 days use a disposal. I don't want it sitting there molding and, particles getting in everything else. So I built the one outside, inside the fence, thought that was all right, but the inspector said it wasn't. So I'd like some clarification on that. But that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I do think the transport agent one is a statutory issue. The waste disposal one, I'm not quite sure if it's statutory or if that's a rule issue, but we will look into that one. Because it sounds like if it's rule or statutory, it wasn't contemplated that it might be outside but within the parameter, and so we just need to look into that. And we'll make sure Naomi has your contact info. I think she probably does from a prior session. Okay, and you're noting, thank you.
All right, next up we have Chip Paul.
Chip, you only have 3 minutes.
That's hard for me. All right, well, my name is Chip Paul, and thank you guys, and appreciate everything that you do. The report is great, really proud of the agency and kind of how it's developed, and glad that we're independent now. So it's wonderful, and good job kind of freeing it up. And Lee, good job on the labs too. The labs are our, stop against consumer safety. Labs are the most important thing that we kind of barrier, I guess, that we put up for consumer safety. So super important on labs. But the thing that I want to talk about today, really, and I want to put on record, is our need within the regulatory to pull in all cannabinoid analytes, and I would classify those as THC analytes and THC knockoff analytes. And what I'm talking about is delta-8 THC, I'm talking about THCO acetate, I'm talking about, whatever the PHIP or whatever the latest one is. And it's very important that we regulate these analytes, and because the FDA is not going to do it, and so you're kind of leaving, and this is sort of a situation that exists right now between kind of cannabis regulatory, hemp regulatory, Farm Bill 2018, and you've got a lot of people that are basically making new drugs with no guidance, none, and no consumer safeties at all. And how these are popping up are as THC analytes. I had a call 2 weeks ago from a friend of mine who had to rush over to a neighbor's house who was a physician. That physician had bought some THCO acetate gummies, and this was in Texas, at a convenience store, and overdosed on them and was having heart palpitations and needed to go to the hospital. So if you don't think there's consequences to these things, there are. But this is a national thing that needs to happen, and we have a chance to lead this here in Oklahoma, but we have to be aggressive about it. We have to get the help of our legislature. And again, as you know, I'm beating that drum as well, and Jed Green is here beating that drum as well. So we need to get this stuff in our regulatory, and we need to begin to regulate these analytes. We also need a path for these guys if they want to do it, but kind of a new drug path, if you will. But that needs to be in the same place where the regulatory is. So anyway, that's it. But thank you guys. You guys are doing a great job. And I left you with kind of a mess with 788. Again, how that was regulated past the law was an even bigger mess. As you guys know, you've had to pick up the pieces and pull that together. But I'm still very proud of what we're doing. I'm very proud of what we did as activists, what we put on the books, the liberties that we won here in Oklahoma. No other state has done that, and no other state has done that the way that we did. And I'm also proud of our regulatory for building on that and not throttling that, right? So it's important. Anyway, thanks.
Well, thank you, Chip. And you could have never told me in 2018 that you just could have never told me. So, yeah. It's just crazy, yeah. But very points well taken on your notes about regulating the analytes. I read everything you send and everything out there, and there have been conversations happening with the legislature on this and with Department of Ag. So thank you so much.
Next up is Jeff Stokes.
Thank you. I am Jeff from Hideaway Farms in Tonkawa, and a lot of what we wanted to address has to do with laboratories, and you've already begun talking about that. It sounds like you're already addressing some of the questions and concerns we have. Our main issue is that the results we're getting back are inconsistent and even inaccurate, and so it's about lack of standardization. But in addition to that, I think since you've already kind of addressed the standardization issue, I think our suggestion and my question is, when we get results back that we feel like are wrong, how do we, is there an arbitration lab? Some way we can have that test retested somewhere? I really haven't been offered that through OMMA, and as I understand, that was something that was supposed to be set up from the beginning. Anybody?
Yeah, I think I'll let Lee should take this one.
With regard to an arbitration lab, the quality assurance lab was really not ever intended to kind of be the referee lab. It was to serve as a quality check on what everybody else did. And if there was a disagreement between what the commercially licensed lab result was, and if we checked it at the quality assurance lab, at that point we just had two different results. Then we still had to do more to figure out, okay, well, which one is the right one, that kind of thing. So we never were really kind of refereeing anything. We were just trying to help labs get better at what they were doing, or that was the intention anyway. We do offer, in the rules now, the ability to retest. And there's an algorithm involved. So if you say you got a fail on something, and you doubted the result, it just seemed like that can't possibly be. It's an outlier from everything else they do.
Well, if I could, we have failed several times, and we've tested positive for 6 different pesticides, and we don't use pesticides. So when that same sample that went in and got tested as positive at the lab, they have to retest, that same lab has to retest the same sample, or the reserve sample, if you will.
Correct.
So if we're not trusting the results, they're giving us stuff, a positive result on something that we don't even have. How do we trust that same lab on the retest? Because they keep coming back, oh yeah, you've got that pesticide.
Yeah, on a case-by-case basis, and sort of kind of what you were talking about with the arbitration lab, if there's a concern on our part that, okay, we will actually go in and do our own deep dive, as we mentioned a couple times. We'll go to the instrument ourselves. Did the number that you generated out of there, could that be real? But with regard to the reserve sample, I think there's a little bit of a misconception right now. That reserve sample is still your sample. it's being housed at the laboratory. And you can request that that be sent to another laboratory for that retest. But you still have to fall under, okay, say you got a different result the second time, it's gonna have to be a 2 out of 3 result. And whatever that 2 out of 3 is, that's what the result is gonna be. But you can request that that reserve sample go to a different laboratory.
Okay. And is that based on, we have to ask permission to do that, or can we just automatically get that done?
You should not have to ask permission. If you run into a roadblock, just reach out to the OMMA labs.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Christy ONeill.
Hi, I'm Christy ONeill with Eagle Feather Reserve. Apparently I've been forgetting to say that. Earlier you made the statement of cleaning up a statutory to have the ability to do the inspection simultaneously. Who and how is it determined which statutory issues need to be cleaned up? And is there a way for us to know which ones y'all are cleaning up versus which ones we need to go to our legislature and have cleaned up? And then coming up in one of the things is so much feet from a place of worship. I was raised where two or more gather. So like there was a lady here yesterday who was obviously not impressed with our industry. So if her and her friends gather next to my farm, am I now in default of that? So who gets to determine what isn't a place of worship at that point? And please, I'm going to say it one more time. Please, please, please reach out to your senators and your representatives and let them know what they need to do to help you, your families, and our industry. And thank you again.
All right, thank you, Christy. On the cleanup language, I said, so whenever there are bills filed, as you know, we will, do we indicate if there's something that we've requested on our website? Yeah, so if it's just what we will request, if anything, will literally be just clean up, like make our jobs easier or make, I'm digging a hole here. This sounds terrible. Oof. Ooh, that sounded bad. Good. I am happy to tell you, anytime there's a bill, I will say we requested that language or we did not request that language, and the bill author will be happy to tell you that. We have not requested any language at this point. And I was probably just thinking out loud whenever I was talking about that, because I just keep thinking out loud, like there's no reason we're doing both of these at the same time. I don't even know why the statute was written like that. So we would mention it to a legislator that wants to help with something and see if they would throw it in a bill.
And the same thing with the 60, 90 day.
Yes. Yes, on license renewal. Yes, same exact thing. If there's a bill in our title of law, we would say, hey, that's something that would make everyone's lives better if that could just be cleaned up. Yeah.
All right, next we have Jason Davenport.
Next time we have a legislative question, I'm sending Barrett up.
Hello, I'm Jason Davenport. I'm with Golden Trends in Norman. So a couple of things I'll reiterate from some of the previous speakers. Mr. Stokes brought up the lab situation. We have run into that a few times. We get results back that maybe just because of our labeling, they kind of put us out of compliance. We calculate things in advance, and we know based off even that own lab's results that they're just terribly off. We can even piece together what they probably did wrong. We're usually able to get that sorted out, but I do really appreciate that you all are looking toward a standardization of that process, something that to maybe kind of serve as a little bit more of a referee. Mr. Cumbus also brought up the issue of the batch IDs. More broadly, metric in general, we have a lot of just general functionality issues with them, with the platform. Their staff is pretty helpful in terms of getting back to us. They're responsive. Bless you. No, you're good. A OMMA has been really responsive, really adaptable. I've had some really good conversations with Rebecca Taylor. We came to some very reasonable, really common sense interpretations of some things. But then when we go to try to actually enact those or use that functionality in Metric, that's where we hit the roadblock. So our staff has engaged with Metric multiple times. There's never really any offer of change. There's not really any flexibility there. So I was going to see/comment if OMMA is leaning on them in other regards. So we brought up the batch ID thing, and that's great. We spend a lot of time, potentially introduce a lot of errors in that step. There are other things too, such as with the testing results following packages and having to use the item function. What, if any, pressure, I guess, is OMMA going to exert on them, or what can we do to kind of get that flexibility improved? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments. We are definitely holding them accountable in many ways, and I don't know, Barrett, if this is something you'd want to add, or Michelle. We have a weekly call where we have accountability points, and we hold them accountable for many things. I am not on those weekly calls, so if somebody that is on them needs to answer more specifically, that's why I'm looking at you. Okay, so yes, we do. We hold them accountable, but to your specifics, we are. There are lab issues that we've been specifically making sure. We know that there are areas that they allow our licensees to click. Well, I don't know how the wording, because I'm not on those calls, Barrett. I know. But anyway, allow our licensees to make choices that aren't also allowed by our rules. And so we're bringing those to them and saying, okay, we shouldn't even have those options. So we're working with them on those. Thank you for letting us know that our staff is helpful. We're working on the batch IDs, working on lab issues.
I'll interpret that look to mean, yes, please grab the mic and talk. So yeah, we have a few different ways that we talk with Metric on an ongoing basis. We have a weekly call where we ask for status updates from Metric on various issues that we've run into, various projects that we've asked them to work on. We also have quarterly business reviews with Metric where it's just an opportunity for Metric and us, representatives from each party, to sit down and say, okay, let's look back at the last quarter. Metric basically says, how did we do? And we get to tell them, you did all right in these areas, you did not great in these areas. And then we ask for Metric to provide feedback on how they plan to improve going into the next quarter. So it's an ongoing process that we are undergoing with Metric, who is a contracted vendor, similar to a lot of our other contracted vendors. So what's helpful to us is to know where the rubber meets the road, where are you finding a lot of these issues, where you're having a lot of these roadblocks, because we can't bring issues to Metric that we're not aware of. So it's very helpful to know that. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else we can say other than we're doing the best we can to communicate issues on a weekly basis and then quarterly express any frustrations that we might have. Yeah.
How do we communicate those issues to you so that you can communicate the Metric? Through the contact form?
So yes, for right now, I would say the contact form. The contact form is generally the best way to communicate issues to OMMA, because that way we get everything through one stream that we can direct that to one team who then directs it to people that can answer the questions, and then it's one stream out. So that way it's not various different streams of information in and various different streams of information out. Having said that, I think when we go back after these town halls and we huddle as a team to figure out what takeaways we've gleaned from this, what action steps we can do moving forward to get better about this, this could be an area, and probably will be an area, that we look at to figure out what is the best way to take in concerns and issues with Metric, and what's the best way that we can take those and run with them and figure out the solutions. But for now, contact form, please.
Sounds like a Metric Town Hall would fill this room.
I'm glad you
How-
said that.
How is this different, though? I mean, our licensees are coming to talk to us about metric, so, I mean, we could, though. We hear about metric all the time, and we have the quarterly, the weekly, and then the one-off when I talk to the CEO or the COOs, and elevate issues. That's what, and we do that often, when we need to elevate and let them know, like, we have got some serious issues, when we know that it's consistent across the industry. If we know you guys are miserable about something, we take it up the chain and we make sure that they know. So just,
Did you let them know that they cost us thousands of dollars during the bottleneck?
I'm pretty sure we did. Yes. Oh, yes. No, we did.
Normally I'm avoiding this, Mike, but I wanted to add one more point to this discussion. And I appreciate Becky Taylor's name being mentioned. Unbelievable job she did in those nearly 1,000 tickets. She's the one that still managed those lab-related tickets. The point I'm trying to make is, we don't just handle those and move through. She's got a spreadsheet of issues that we can now, and we've kind of been trying to get our hands around what all is everything that's going on. We're now pivoting in our own internal metric meetings to, okay, here's the list of things, we got to get these and get these prioritized for metric to go. So all of the issues that you all have been dealing with, we haven't just kind of checked that one off and then we're done. We actually have been compiling that. That's kind of helping us be informed. So at that point where we're interacting with you, we know what your pain points are and kind of organize them and catalog them that way. And we are now pivoting to getting that information, and here's how you need to do this, or we would like to see this. So I just wanted to add that to you, that all of the things y'all have been going through that we've been helping you with, we're just not ignoring that. That's information in our hands as well.
Yes. And to your point, Doctor, there is a webinar tomorrow, metric webinar. Kelsey, can you give info on that? Thank you. I'm just calling on everybody today. Nobody's safe. I'm sorry.
Hello? Okay. Hello. The Metric webinars are tomorrow. It's hosted by Metric. We're basically just facilitating it for them. They're going to be an hour and a half each. There are 4 of them tomorrow. Online webinars you can attend. There's more information on our website, omma.ok.gov/events. It's also the very first slider you'll see on our homepage when you visit omma.ok.gov. And should be good. Gilbert may have more information. I'm going to put him on the spot now.
There's going to be 4 sessions starting at 8:30 and ending at I believe 4:30. We'll be filming in Capitol Room 535. It's a free registry. Like Kelsey said, you can just go on our website. And it is just educational. Registering through Metric.
All right. Same sessions all day. Okay. Recorded
Yes.
to watch later.
Yes.
All right, Gilbert, who's next to speak?
The next person is Tessie Copeland Dukes.
Perfect timing. That was like an entrance. Sure. Who is after her? We'll do her next.
Next is Joanna Hamrick.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
After that is, Ernest Niche.
Niche. Yeah. Niche.
Once again, my name's Ernie Nitch. Thank you. Good afternoon. Again, thank you for being here. This is the first town hall in 4 years. I hope there's more of them. And I was very excited to hear that you were thinking about being here for another 4 years, potentially. That would be great, other than just a revolving window or revolving door of directors. I want to bring up the issue of fresh frozen. We've decided, we have well, actually 1 or 2 processing licenses not to get involved with BHO, blasting, whichever. It just seems too complicated. You have to have blast-proof rooms. So we've really gone to fresh frozen, non-solvent. Currently, the testing limits are, I believe, a 50-pound limit for fresh frozen. And I don't know who came up with the number 50, but typically, if you have a wet plant, your dry weight is approximately 15%. So it would seem to me if you wanted a dry limit of 15 pounds, times that by 5, that'd be 75 pounds for fresh frozen or for wet. That would help us out with some of the costs involved, keeping in mind that even when we grow and we do fresh frozen, now we have to test it again and through the processing license. So it's really getting tested twice. So the more that we can save, that would be great. Someone mentioned the other day about the different products and the you may have one wax and you may have a baller jar, 1 gram, whichever. I understand that's the same. And then if you put it in a final form, if we take that wax, let's say, we melt it, put it into a cart, I believe it's a different form. So now we need another test for the cart, even though it's the same product. Understanding that you might say, well, it's a different, you have to test the actual cart to make sure there's no metal in the cart. And I did the research on this. I can't find a cart made in the United States. The batch numbers for the carts change all the time. When you go to order them, they're all different every time you order. So yes, we may test a cart and there may not be metals in there. Whatever cart I have in the next week to fill could be completely different. And that's just the way it works because we have no control over that. Same thing with papers and whatever. They're all made overseas. We really don't have control over that. A quick thing I want to mention about the time frame for compliance. When we're on an inspection, and I was going to mention this to Michelle, sometimes and especially now, they're getting a little frustrated because they'll say, okay, I need to see the manifest for this product or whichever testing. And I'm trying to reduce paperwork. The amount of paperwork that Metric's generating now is extreme. And I'm trying to, instead of having file cabinets full of paperwork, is try to digitize it, put it in some kind of an online format so I can access it. And they tell me, great, as long as you can pull it in a reasonable amount of time. Sometimes they sit there with their arms crossed. I need it right now that I'm standing there. And I like even if it's a 5-minute time limit where I can then give it to someone and say, okay, go find this to find it. Because it's very daunting when you're sitting there and they're like, let's go. And that's pretty much, you address the issue of the batch number. One quick thing before I go, the trade associations. We need a trade association. And I know we've got a couple of them. There's 10,000 licenses. I don't think you have 10,000 members combined, make it into one trade association, but we do need something because I've been a practicing lawyer now for 25 years. I can't keep up with this stuff. It's so complicated.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Anyways, that's all I have to say is just we need to get a trade association or something better. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up is Sherry Roberts. All right, is Bree?
Oh, Sherry's coming. And Ernie, we can follow up because I wrote notes. We can follow up.
Oh my gosh. My name's Sherry Roberts and I'm with Big Dream Cannabis Company. We're a small family-owned grow and processor. And I was up here in the grow, so I won't restate some of my stuff because it was for you guys, I guess. I noticed signage hasn't been brought up on this, which is a big concern of mine. One of the things that I had written down here before that I didn't get to ask was there's a lot of stuff that you guys are wanting us to log or keep track of that's outside of Metric. If there would be a way to create forms that we could get download from the website of what that tracking log is, that'd be easier for us to know if we're capturing all the right information for you guys. Also, I would think it'd be easier for your inspectors to all be looking at the same log formats and not have to look and try to refigure out what they're keeping track of. You got it all in one format and we're all compliant because we know what the form looks like. Does that make sense? And then testing's been brought up several times. I brought it up a little bit before, but testing for vertical companies. And I know a lot of the stuff we're asking is legislation. But some of this stuff like the fresh frozen and everything's coming from our own farms, going to the processing, and we're having to retest multiple times. Very important to test the end product, I know, but it's costing us lots of money along the way to test and test and test and test and then test the final product. So he said it's a legislation issue. So some of the trade people, if they're here, that's a big deal for us. It's costing us a lot of money, and right now with the price of products, we're not making much. So anything would help. On that same line, there's certificates of compliance. We're doing all of our operations in one building, but yet we have to file a certificate of compliance and pay for each license. Instead of, it's for this building, our building's in compliance, let's just pay for that once and get the whole building reviewed. That would save us money too. So, and that, again, that's probably a legislative issue. I noticed on your thing that a lot of the inspections have been in Region 1, which is Oklahoma City, which we probably have a lot more licensed people here. But I know we've been inspected at least 6 to 8 times. Every time we've passed, never had any issues, but we've had multiple inspectors at our facility, and it seems like it's maybe not being done outside of the Oklahoma City region, where you see all these big farms pop up with 60 greenhouses, and are they all getting inspected 6 to 8 times like we're getting expected? I mean, it just seems like it's being lopsided to Region 1. And I think that's all I had. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. Noted on the OKC, yeah, we've been staffing up around the state much, much more. This, and point well taken. The COCs, you might want to, you'll want to talk to your county about that. Are you in Oklahoma County? Yeah, okay.
Okay, next up is Bree Truitt.
Hello. So I had a question about stickers. So it says in the rules you're not allowed to put a sticker on top of a sticker, but we get all these new sticker requirements where it now has to say for medical patients only. It's an increased cost for us to take our old stickers off, print new stickers, and put them on, when we could just put on a little sticker to then make them compliant.
I think you have fans. Do you have any other, in your time, do you want to say anything else, or was that your?
Is there something we can do about that?
So I wanted to make sure that was what you wanted.
I have another question.
Okay, so that's an action item that we will discuss as a team. Truly, this is something that has been brought to me one other time. I think we have to figure out what the intent was, and if we're actually reaching that intent, or if it's what the issue is, because there are other people, actually somebody in this room that brought this to me recently. So yes, that is something that we will address.
Okay, great.
So, and we can talk offline, so you can tell me a little more about what the problems are. But what's your next question, and we can go through that.
So as a standalone agency, is OMMA going to be audited?
We would volunteer to be audited at any time, and we are planning to we will self-audit, we will ask Loft to audit us, we are open to any kind of audits.
Because I know when people ask questions about the excise tax, it's a very general answer about percentages. And I think people want more accountability, not just what the percentage is supposed to go to, but what it's actually going to.
Happy to give that. And it's all public record. We have all of that. I mean, it's pages and pages of financial documents. I guess just figuring out the best way to get it to people. But I'm happy to, honestly.
I think that would satisfy a lot of those comments, Facebook comments that you guys get.
I don't read them anymore.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Up next, we have Stan Mills.
Yes, I wasn't going to talk today, but since stuff was brought up, I thought I might just mention a few things. Laboratory testing is the bane of my existence. Okay? It's been brought up many times, but it needs to be addressed. Really, seriously. I mean, I had 2 good labs. One of them went out of business. My second lab, which I feel is a very good lab, the results are variable, but I have run that equipment and I know why they're variable. And I get that, but it just makes me crazy. Enough said. In relationship to the Delta 8 and HHC and all the analogs, I think you're going to be just fine when the hemp bill gets renewed, because I would suspect that federally that's going to be addressed in the hemp bill, which is due this year for renewal. Just a comment. Is it possible to get OMMA to give us failure points? No, our failure points. So you're running it. No, it doesn't have to be by individual. It can be by batch. So you go out and you do compliance testing. I applaud you on what you're getting done. I think a lot of people would appreciate it if you are seeing failure points. Half the people we inspect is getting ticked for, fined for, blah, 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 down the list. It would make, in the long run, it would make your job easier.
Yes. No, that's on a list of 2023 goals, is to have a space where we want to give more information for consumers to make an educated decision. So be able to do a little more research on the businesses that they patronize so that they can see more information about inspections and lab results. We want to do some lab grading based on just data and science, no opinions. So we're working on all of that. Yes.
I love that. And last but not least, it runs into metric. I have a real issue with if I have a batch of products and I produce 2 different sizes from the same container, I got to send that in twice, because I got to send it in for the 2 ounce and I have to send it in for the 4 ounce. And so when I take a sample out of a container, I take 2 out for the 2 ounce, same bucket. I take 2 out for the 4 ounce, and I send it to the lab, and I pay twice. Now, that makes absolutely 0 sense to me. Does it make any sense to you? Or should you want me to rephrase it? So okay. All right.
You would have made a good lawyer, doctor, because you just were trying to put me on the record. I'm trying to track everything you're saying, and I'm looking at Lee to make sure. Is there anything that you'd like to say to that?
I'm not sure if it's a metric related thing, that it's seeing 2 different packages. But if what you're filling your 2 ounce and your 4 ounce is a batch of a certain size, and then you haven't changed anything, you just put it in something else, it's this big or this big, I don't know that metrics should be disassociating the testing with what you made those individual things out of. So if I can maybe look and see specifically what's happened, if at some point maybe you can get Naomi your information, and if I could get a specific batch, I could certainly look at that and see why or how you ended up having to test both of those.
Yeah, the batches are by size. So when you input them into metric, you know, it's a 2 ounce of joint cream. It's a 4 ounce of joint cream. In order to be able to put them in there so that I can actually take them out and sell them, I have to put them in 2 different sizes. Even though they're,
Yeah. Right, right. But I'm not, I need to look and see why metric is not associating whatever your batch of topical is that you put together, that you put in this size or this size, that should have been where that testing was done. Then no matter what derived package out of that you made, the testing should apply to those. So if I could look at specifically, then maybe I can provide some guidance on exactly what's happening there. So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, it may be that I'm doing it wrong.
Well,
I mean, that is
I
possible.
don't, again, people are just kind of feeling their way along with some of this kind of stuff. And so where we can help with that, where I can help with that, I certainly would love to do that.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
They're saying that he's doing it right, so Lee. They're all saying he's doing it right.
You're creating 2 final products that are different, you're gonna be sold different, then it requires 2 separate tests. So that even though it came out exactly the same production batch A, all your production batch B, so to speak, will require 2 separate tests. You're right, it's a crock.
I actually got a different feedback from Metric learning that. Metric, I sat down when we were doing the Metric classes and I talked to one of the Metric guys, and he explained to me that if you're making a 25 milligram gummy, you are testing it as a 25 milligram gummy, and that's what it goes into the batch. That's your batch, 25 milligram gummy. And then from that 25 milligram gummy, you're going to create a package from that 25 for a 4-pack of the 25 milligram gummy, for a 10-pack of the 25 milligram gummy. It's still that same one, but you originally have to test the 25 milligram gummy. So say you make 10,000 25 milligram gummies. You have 10,000. Of that 10,000, you're going to designate part of those to a single pack and part of those to a multi-pack. But you're going to pull those out of that batch, and they're not going to have to retest it. And that's how they laid it out for me to do. Because I went through the same thing, asking them, beating them over the head, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this? I'm a small processor, I'm a small manufacturer. How do I accommodate this? And that's how they explained it to me, because that is the final product. 25 milligram gummy, that's the product. There is no change in, the statute says it has to be the same ingredients, the same SOP, the same oil, right? That's a batch. And if that's a batch, my 25 milligram gummy's not changing. It's still a 25 milligram gummy. Your topical cream that you made, your large batch of topical cream that you made, you have that tested, and then you pull that package from there to a 2-ounce bottle to a 4-ounce bottle. The test will follow it. You just repackage.
And the name, so the name can change between the gummy and the 2 different size packages.
So yeah, so mine says like 25 milligram gummy. This is, I pull it off, this is a single 25 milligram gummy, and then I pull it off to a 25 milligram, 300 milligram pack.
You're creating a new item.
I do the same thing.
Have a metrics.
You do that?
Tomorrow. Will help.
We do the same thing.
Under the admin tab.
I mean, he's talking about the topical over here. He's talking about, you know, something completely different. Yeah, that may work for gummies, but it doesn't work for topical.
No, it does, because it goes off the weight. It's topical.
Don't you have to have a
Isn't there a metric training tomorrow?
In that, on your package?
Yeah. We just go by weight.
Maybe some OMMA guidance on this would be helpful for everybody. Yeah, that sounds like we're all doing it different.
We get a lot of comments from the
Yes,
crowd.
this definitely sounds like a prime area for us to be figuring out the exact situation, like what the issue is, how we fix it. We will work on this. So this is, we all were texting, not we all, but a lot of us were texting each other last night about how amazing it was yesterday, because we all learned a lot. And it's not that we learned like facts or figures or those kind of things. We just learned what's going on. And we needed to learn those things, and it's this kind of stuff. We get to go back and say, okay, we know what's going on. Because the reason I jokingly said I don't read Facebook comments anymore is because, like, those don't give us a real life view of what's going on in the world, right? This does. So we're going to continue making sure we're engaging with you guys so we learn this kind of stuff and we can come up with real life solutions. So continue working with us, and we can keep building these relationships. So Lee, I'm sure that you gathered all of that and we can figure out how to solve this. Do we have anybody else signed up to speak? So you want to come back to you? Is it Tessie? Tessie?
Yeah. Well, now I have like a whole bunch of other things that I want to talk about. But, okay, I got time. So you're not gonna like time me down on this clock, right? Okay, so I'm Tessie. I own Middy's Medicinals. We're a small craft processor. I speak really fast, so I'm going to try to get this all out. I wrote it down so I can kind of try to stay on point. Mine is more of sharing a perspective on the greatly overshadowed gem of cannabis industry. Sorry, I get a little shaky and a little nervous. I don't know why. I love to talk, but I still get nervous in front of people. The greatly shadowed over gem of the cannabis industry is the small business, us mom and pops. And I'm asking you guys to step back with me and look at what we really have here in Oklahoma. If you pull away the curtains in Oklahoma cannabis, it's not all about the foreign investors and black markets. While I acknowledge these things truly exist, I also recognize that these are often buzzwords and fear tactics that are lobbied by big money and large companies. These large companies use these fear tactics to lobby for higher fees and overburden regulations to destroy their real competition, which is us mom and pops. Big companies tend to only see the financial endeavors of cannabis, corners that can be cut, and not often they don't care about the quality of the products or the people. Us mom and pops are important for the successful medical cannabis program because we actually really care about the quality of medical cannabis. We take real pride in cannabis. We educate patients to the best of our abilities with very limited resources. This is a medical cannabis program, but we don't have medical journals. We don't have medical journals to recommend from or pharmacology research to reference. We have trials and errors. We have endless hours of digging through limited research, adapted homeopathic recipes. We have stories shared of what worked and what didn't. Patient needs business owners with firsthand knowledge in this new frontier of plant-based medicine. Patients also want and need to feel important and taken care of. They want to know their name when they walk in your door. They want to share their stories of success and woes. We mom and pops have to be patient focused in order for this to work. And more often than not, it feels like our legislators and regulators continue to lose sight of these small cannabis businesses that are truly a lifeline feeding this program. These small cannabis businesses are small farmers that now have a new crop to harvest, in turn feeding their families and preserving generational homesteads. You have mom and pops with retail dreams no different than owning a restaurant or a bookstore or a boutique shop that are filling their dreams with cannabis. There are small transport companies staffed with military and police veterans, giving them an opportunity to serve again and feel alive and feel needed. You have medical professionals switching to advocating for cannabis because they have witnessed firsthand the danger of overprescribed pharmaceuticals that continue to destroy the livelihoods of Oklahomans. You have parents and grandparents and siblings pouring their savings and retirement into cannabis that is often a much more effective and safer alternative to pharmaceuticals in hopes of saving their family members and others from the pain and loss they have endured from big pharma. You have small manufacturing kitchens like my family's that produced small batch, high quality food for farmers markets, food co-ops whose livelihoods was devastated by closed markets when COVID hit. Thank goodness for the language and opportunities of 788. That helped restore our opportunities to serve Oklahomans through that low barrier of entry with a $2,500 fee. Our plant-based nutritional passions gave us the fuel to provide quality medicine products with the same values as our small batch farmers markets roots. This is a network of Oklahomans coming together in a new cannabis industry, driven to create our own dreams and legacies to pass on to our children.
We are farmers and retired teachers and disabled veterans and bakers and candy makers and healthcare workers, cancer survivors, parents, grandparents, and more looking for safer alternatives and the American dream in this industry. In saying all of that, I hope that you guys will join us, the heart of 788, the people, the small business, and start looking out for us in your legislative suggestions, whether it's proposed regulations or the software that you look at, any of those things, your training of your staff. We've got to stop creating legislation and rules that stifle out the small business. We have to preserve and foster our growth and ability to sustain these barriers. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for hearing us. I thank you for seeing us. And today, and I listened to your other lives, I heard many things such as, yes, we are working on improving that. We are continuing to train. This is a third-party issue. We didn't know that was an issue. And to say that OMMA is a very well-funded agency with vast resources and a great team of people working really hard. So in saying that, I in turn ask that you guys continue to give us small businesses with much less resources than OMMA, very little employees, the same grace you are asking for us as we all navigate this new industry. And I thank you for letting me speak. I thank you for having these. I could sit here and speak to you for days on different things that could make this better. I come from a long professional standpoint in tax regulation, so I applaud you for standing up here with grace and professionalism and listening to people vent to you and tell you that, you know, this doesn't work and that doesn't work, because we know that there's black and white, but we all have to come together to find a gray area that can make us all successful. And I appreciate that. I hope to be able to talk to you about the lab stuff. I have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. Coming from a manufacturing standpoint and small business, you know, we've had a lot of, we're allowed to produce in lots, but then Metric says we can't produce in lots, but we're required to have a lot on our batch. You know, there's a lot of different things that we can need to try to fine tune and say, hey, together, let's do it this way. So thank you.
Thank you. Well done. No, that was impressive, and thank you for getting up the nerve to come up and do it. You did great. What do we want to do now? Okay, open up the floor for people who did not sign up. Yeah. Will you come up to the mic though? Oh wait, do we have more people? Oh, Gilbert can come around with the mic, or you can just come up here. We want to put you on mic because we're recording this and we'll post it on YouTube for people who couldn't be here. Make sure you say your name.
Hi, my name is Devin Valentine. I know we've talked about testing a lot, but I had a question. Vape carts, they can't legally be remediated. I know a gentleman came up earlier and he was talking about like laboratories getting things wrong and testing. We had clean COAs on about 1,200 vape carts that we had produced before Metric came along. We had to get them retested because of Metric to get them tested within Metric, and when we did that, we had to use a new laboratory. When we used the new laboratory, 2 strains out of our 3 strains of vape carts failed for basically mold that previously wasn't there, and we kind of went over the results, and we really feel like the laboratory itself made a mistake. Through the current legislature, there's no way for us to contest that. There's no way for us to get it retested. Basically, we're being forced to destroy 1,200 vape carts that previously had clean COAs. We feel the laboratory made a mistake, but there's nothing we can do besides just destroy our product that we feel is clean. So I just want to get a little more clarification on if there's any routes that can be done there, or yeah.
I kind of wish you may have asked that question before. We absolutely have no prohibition on remediating any microbial failure whatsoever, no matter what form that's in. The only remediation, the only analytes that fail, we currently don't allow remediation for are pesticides and heavy metals. So you can absolutely remediate microbial failure, residual solvent failure, in the off cases where it fails for water activity or moisture content. Those specifically are rules allow for those to be remediated now.
So Metric's not allowing us to, and the reasoning is because it's a vape cart, and vape carts can't be remediated.
Then that's another case where Metric is not in alignment with.
When I ask Metric, they basically tell me to refer to OMMA, and I've yet to hear anything from OMMA on that. So
Well, if you've got product that's locked up now, if you'll get information, your contact information for Naomi, if you can get what that batch number is and all of that, you not only can remediate that, but you can absolutely have that retested. We allow retesting for every analyte. And again, kind of what we talked about before, whatever 2 out of 3 results you get is what that final result's going to be. So I'll try to see if it's locked up now, if you still have it, try to figure out what the deal is. Why Metric would say that, I can't answer that, but we absolutely allow retesting and remediation.
And even when we try to like remediate it through Metric, it won't allow us to do it in their system. And it also pops up, cannot remediate category vape carts.
Fascinating. Thank you. I did not know that. That's something I've learned, and that's another thing we'll add to our list of things we need to address.
Hello. Okay, just making sure it was on. I'm Rochelle with Canola Gardens. I just have a quick comment. So we had about a month ago now, everybody keeps mentioning this contact on OMMA's website. So we had contacted through there because that's what the phone told us on OMMA. And when we did, the problem is when I sent that email, I don't know that you guys got it. I tried to call. I still haven't heard back from that contact when I sent that in. And if you guys, I know when you call OMMA, they'll make reference tickets and things like that to help keep up. Maybe you should do that with your contact form. Because like I said, when I called, they told me, well, there's no one we can find out if we got it or not. There's nothing we can do at that point. And so that kind of left me in the blank to like, well, did they even get my question? So if you guys could somehow send back and say, well, we got your question, we're working on it, some kind of referencing ticket, because I still don't even know if you guys got it. So, but it was to do with the dispensary issues that we were having and stuff and renewing our license, but that's all I had.
Thank you for telling me that. Kelsey, do you want to say something? Gilbert.
Sorry.
Mike.
Even your call center told
Will
us
you
that would
repeat-
be great.
Will you repeat what you, from the beginning so we can hear you?
Well, whenever we say we're denied and we call the call center, they have no information on that. So in a lot of other industries I've been in, I at least have contact with the person that has my renewal, in all reality, they have our fate in their hands. So we should be able to directly talk to that person, not a call center, to whoever's processing our paperwork. Because I'm sure it's assigned to someone. I mean, I don't think it's just a computer doing it. So, and even if it was just why we're in renewal and then that goes away, that would be great.
The right person has the mic over here that's going to respond to you.
Hi. Okay, I'm the communications director. So I have the pleasure of overseeing the call center, social media, emails, the website, all of the events that we put on. That's all within communications. So I know that there are issues with the call center. There are a lot of issues that are within OMMA. that we have to get sorted out internally. But we hear you. We know. We hear this often. I'm excited. We've got a plan in place. It's kind of just we need to implement it. But my goal is for that when you call the call center, you get an answer. You get your problem resolved. That's what we're working toward. Yep. Right. I know. I hear this often, and believe me, the call center agents are frustrated too. They want to be able to help you. Yeah, it's an internal problem. It's an internal like OMMA wide issue that we're working on fixing. I think 2023 is going to be the year that we get the call center up and running the way it needs to be, so that it is a helpful resource for you guys, a more helpful resource. Yeah, there are some really, really good people working in that call center, and they work really hard. They get 6,000 calls a month, and it's about 12 people. So they do their best. They really, really, really do, and we're trying to get them trained, but we're doing all kinds of things. But thank you for bringing that up, and I appreciate your patience, not just here, but while you're waiting on the phone. The bit about the contact form, that's something we did differently too just recently. That team that is working on the contact form has doubled in size just in the last 2 weeks. So we're going to get a pretty faster turnaround. Let me be frank with you. We're using Microsoft Outlook to do this, and that's not a ticketing system. We need a ticketing system. So that's kind of something that I'm working on the back end. But again, we have to get that in place. But once we do, we'll have reference numbers. You'll be able to get, like you do with other big companies, you send in a request, you're going to get a, like, hello, we have received your response. That's the goal. That's what we're working on. I promise. I just asked my communications manager right now. We're working on, I think it's like 2 to 3 weeks. I know that's not great, but the team did just double. So that's with those old numbers. So that should be going down real soon.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you. And we do have the funds, but I mean, everything we do is state government. So we can't just go out and purchase software. We literally have to go through a procurement process. It is all set out in state law. I'm learning as I go. I have to seek guidance and counsel from a team of attorneys who guide me on how we can purchase things. It takes time. But also hiring the right people and training the right people takes time. So all of this, the things that I inherited in August of 2021, the teams, some good, some bad, some needed fixing. So we are all working on fixing them. And I hope you guys will see the fruits of those labors, have seen and will continue to see. But these people are all working real hard for you, and I hope you see that too. Gilbert's walking around with the mic, so make sure you say your name in the microphone so we catch it on the video. Thank you, Kelsey. Oh, as far as talking to the person, another part of Kelsey's long-term plan that she will be that will be moving forward is that we're looking to embed call center employees in their department in the future so that they are specialists. So there will be call center specialists who focus on licensing. So it'll be similar to what you're talking about.
We were told last time, well, we don't even know how to get a hold of that person. That's what the call center said.
Lovely.
Yes, ma'am. My name's Tyler Brookshire. Similar to everyone in here, have the same pain points, metric and labs, right? And so specifically in regards to metric, is there a reason why OMMA has not built their own seed to sale tracking platform? And here's the reason why I'm asking. One, your slide up there said 39% of the revenue goes to contracts. Well, you can eliminate a contract there with that. And so that also helps keep money in-house for OMMA as well as going outsourcing. I'm guessing everyone in here probably agrees that we don't necessarily like metric. Is it functional? Sure. Is it exactly what we need? No. I think we've heard testimonies from everyone in here today. It just seems kind of clear to me that we should OMMA should build their own seed-to-sale tracking tracing system. That way, you're not having to train your folks on learning metric. It's built in-house. You have the person who physically built it, can explain, can teach everyone. And I just thought it might be a suggestion that might be beneficial to everyone in this room, including you guys as well. And then one other thing on the labs. So I sent 7 strains to get tested. The first time when they came back, they all, and I make pre-rolls, so they all came back as passed. I did an extra step in metric, so I had to get metric involved and OMMA involved, right? When I get the response back was, oh, we're sorry. Actually, 2 of the strains that you sent to us had failed when we actually went back and looked at it. So from my standpoint and the lab standpoint, right, they're supposed to be the ones that are governing this, right, because it is, by the letter of the law, medical. My curiosity is, how does it come from the lab saying passed, but they start digging into it? Again, because I did an extra step in metric, so I'm not complaining that we had to dig into it. That was my fault. My question is, how does it come back passed from the lab, but then they start digging into it? Oh, that's a fail. Furthermore, when asked for the retest, they said that they would do it. The response that I got to my retest was, well, it looked about the same, so we just didn't do anything with it. So how do we not have, I don't get it. And I'm new, by the way. I'm 3 months into it, and I've paid $3,500 in testing because of retest. Oh, it looks the same. Oh, well, actually, we said it passed, but now come to find out it doesn't pass. So it just seems to me like there's a lot of loopholes that could be tied up. One, if we do testing at the state level, just flat weight across the board. And 2, if OMMA builds their own internal seed-to-sale tracking and tracing platform. Thank you.
To your first point, I've brought this up with our CTO. So for the first time, we have our own chief technology officer through OMES, and I asked him what it would take to build our own seed-to-sale tracking system, because that is a dream of mine. So that's something I am not opposed to. Why have we not? We have absolutely been trying to just survive. We are crawling and trying to walk. So it hasn't been on the radar, but would love to. So. You guys act like I don't understand that. If I've made you think I don't understand that, I don't know how that happened, but I do. I'm just in a different position than y'all are. I'm the director of a regulatory agency. And as far as the lab, I want Lee to touch base with you and just kind of learn more on that exact situation, because that's also a business relationship. Choosing that lab again may not be the best choice. All right, Gilbert's gonna go over.
Hi, I'm Janice Dolans. Thanks once again for allowing this town hall to happen, the voices of the licensees being heard. I am literally just standing to speak one more time. I was here yesterday because I really, really felt the OMMA sincerity from all of the leaders here. And I know that you have taken notes, and I know that our considerations are important to you. So I just wanted to state that I really want to encourage that the OMMA stays up to date with the cannabis culture and the culture that is all around us, the state of Oklahoma, and that we do look at these opportunities right now to be leaders, because there is so much change all the time coming at us. And I've been at this regulated industry for a very long time, 15 years, and there will be no stopping me from participating. And what I find that does stop other people from participating is other bad players and terrible regulations that they can't seem to get over. So when you take the time and the opportunity to really stay current with what's going on around us so that we aren't repeating mistakes that we don't need to repeat, it's so incredibly helpful at the business level. I am piggybacking on the mom and pops of our licensees to say that I think it is so important that we are listening and supporting that culture. Because and I speak of culture, I think of things even just like the word marijuana. All serious people in this industry should be calling this cannabis. And I think that the state of Oklahoma, like many states, probably chose that word marijuana because that's the word of the moment. So when we have the opportunity to move forward, possibly with a vote for adult use, not recreational, we have the opportunity to really choose those words that mean something, that make an impact to the greater culture around us, not just the people in our industry, but our communities, because that's why we're all here. We're here for our communities. This all got started because people were recognizing that people could be really, really positively impacted by consuming cannabis for medicinal reasons. And I love the idea of recreational because I love fun, but cannabis is just a personal choice, and safe access to it is all of our responsibility. So I would love to just encourage OMMA to continue being responsible to all of these licensees to help us truly break the stigma with just those minor adjustments to how we treat this product inside of our greater culture. So one more thing quickly is the fees. So as we step forward and continue forward, please consider all of the fees. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, no problem. And I want to take a moment and I want to make sure, because I'm sure not everyone watches Channel 9 News on Saturday mornings, but recently, and this is, I don't usually like doing these kind of things, but recently I was asked to be on a show called Hot Seat with Scott Mitchell. It's a political talk show on Saturday mornings. And if you guys go and watch it, I literally said what y'all are saying. And you will hear my voice saying there are hardworking Oklahomans in this industry that get overshadowed by the conversations about the illicit market. So I hope you guys know that I am out there saying these kind of messages in the media. And it's not because that's what anybody thinks I should be doing. It's because that's what I know and that's what I see. And that's what the hot seat was about. It's about what is not being talked about in the media. Well, that's literally what's not being talked about in the media. So just know that I hear you. We all hear you. We all know that. So just putting it out there. Gilbert.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Palmer. I'm with Apothecary Extracts. I think everybody touched on all of my pain points as well with Metric, but really those batch numbers was one thing that I wanted to bring up today. But also just one quick comment. I have gotten the same advice from Metric on the topical, the edible batch issues that have been brought up from a couple of individuals as well. So I do it very similar to Tess, I believe your name was. If we test a 25 milligram gummy and we package it in different amounts of gummies, they're all 25 milligrams. I was directed the same way from Metric as well. As similar with my topicals, sir. We do a 1 ounce jar and a 2 ounce jar, and because it came from the same batch, they told me I just needed to test it once and change the item as I repackaged it, as Tess mentioned as well. The one question that I did have for you, Director, was I know you only have control over the 7% of tax, but is there anything that OMMA can do to stop businesses from renewing their licenses who are not paying the rest of those taxes? Thank you.
So are you saying businesses who don't file like their income taxes or? Okay, that is a great point. That was actually just brought up recently that we would look at income tax filings at renewal. And we are doing the due diligence on the legal side to make sure that's something we can require at renewal. Yes. we're looking at business. Business, yeah. So like 1120s and 1065, those type.
My name's Haley Shockey, and I was just like having kind of a statement / question with the regards of testing. I don't know. I feel like some of them aren't fair. Like my facility specifically has sent out the same product to 2 different test facilities, and one would say we have failed, but the other one said we have passed, and I was wondering how that is fair and like what like how is that regulated? Because like obviously as a company we're gonna go with the passing testing to sell the product, but like how is that fair if one facility says it's failed, one's passing, but it's the same product from the same batch? And like another question about the water permits, is that gonna like limit us on how much water use we use with processing and watering our plants, or is that just like a license saying that we're allowed to use water?
So I'll answer your first one. The lab testing one, what you described is exactly why we're doing the lab standardization project. And so until we get all of that done, it's good. That kind of thing is what we hear all the time. We're able to identify some of the labs that continuously give the same more outrageous, I would say, results, especially on the THC potency side, so we can investigate before we get the standards in place, but we're working on that part. That's exactly what we're working on. The water one, it's a bill, it's in bill form, so it has not passed through the legislature. I haven't read all of the bill text yet, so I'm not exactly sure. But I do think the intent is related to the fact that in rural Oklahoma, there is limited water, and they see a lot of outdoor grows specifically using a lot of the rural water supplies. So I do think that they are going to look at limiting the use of some of the water.
Follow-up question, would that leave us, like, will we have to split the limit of water? Like, I can only use a certain amount of gallons for my plants and a certain amount of gallon for my processing, or are you gonna give us a whole limit that we would have to divide ourselves?
I am not sure exactly. Ashley, can you remind me the bill number on that one? Senate Bill 117. I would go read that, and it would be something that the Oklahoma Water Resources Board would regulate, and they would give you, they would tell you exactly what you would have to do. So we wouldn't be involved since we don't regulate water.
And then
Luckily, I don't know how
another
to do
question about the badges. Like, have any like details on regards of like how much it's gonna be? How often we will have to renew that? Will that limit me to only like a category? Like specifically me, like I can clone, I grow, I do harvest, I do OMMA compliancy in my facility I work for. So if I get a badge, would I have to have it limited to one thing do I do, or would that just cover everything?
So I wish I had more info for you on the badging, but we will have it soon. The statute gives us until January 1 of 2024 to have that ready to go. And because of all of the laws that came at us at once, we have them staggered. And so that's one that we are just now at the very first step of getting the requests for proposals out. So I don't have more info for you on the badging, but the intent of the legislature was just that every employee will have a badge. I don't believe that it would be a badge based on every single thing that you do within the industry. I don't think that was the intent. I think it's more of being able to track. The stories that we heard were that there were people hopping around. They would maybe steal from one employer and then just hop around and steal from other employers and then just leave town and go to the next town. Being able to make sure that I guess the employees are trackable, I guess, in the industry seems to be the intent of the legislature in passing the bill. And we are going to work with them just to make sure that we understand their intent as we write this request for proposals, but we're on the very front end of it. So I don't have more answers for you right now. I'm sorry.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Phillips. I'm with Oklahoma Compliance Testing Lab out of Tulsa. I didn't have any intention of talking today, but I first wanted to say thank you to OMMA and the team for being here and opening yourself up, exposing yourself to rigorous questioning all day. It's not easy. So thank you guys for that. Thank you all for showing up to this this opportunity to talk out of 10,000 plus licenses. It's not very many people here, so thank you guys. One thing I did want to bring up that I have been challenged with recently was with the most recent proposed rule changes. You guys typically do a very good job of underlining the changes in the rules. However, this set of rules was underlined in full, all 100 pages. There are changes in that set of rules that impact each of us, but it's very difficult to identify those when you have to read all 100 pages. That was my main comment. Thank you guys very much.
Yes, you are right about that. Because they were all new, because they're all in a new section. Kumbas, did you want to answer that, or? No, sorry. So I didn't know. Yes, since they were all new rules, I totally get your point, and I feel your pain. I think we had a list. Ashley, can you confirm? And Kelsey, we had a list of what changed.
In the rule impact statement that we have to file, we have to highlight the changes and what statutory requirements enable us to make those changes. So we have that all on our website on omma.op.gov on the rules page, under the public comment period for our changes there.
Ashley said some things. So there is a list of the changes that were made. It's just in a separate document. So, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Ryan. Do you guys have an industry advisory council? And if not, how do I volunteer as tribute?
Well, Ryan. No, so we had one in statute that for whatever reason was taken out of statute. I believe there might be one created in statute this year, but if not, we are, what we want to do is create one voluntarily. We want to create an advisory committee that's made up of industry, but also stakeholders from Oklahoma, just Oklahomans and other state agencies. So I've been working with the legislature to advise me on that. So you, Ryan, person in the audience, would like to volunteer as tribute. There are a lot of people that would like to volunteer. And so that's the issue right now, is figuring out how do we identify who is on that committee? Because we need to be advised on what's going on in the industry, what's going on for patients, but also what's going on for other state agencies, Oklahomans in general. So there are so many different layers. Town halls like this, roundtables, we're trying to attack it from a lot of different angles. That's what we're doing right now, throwing lots of darts.
My name is Jace Rivera. I operate a vertically integrated cultivation and processing facility, and my question is regarding waste. I've asked both of our inspectors who have come out to give me a clear definition on what waste actually is. We proudly operate a closed loop cultivation facility where everything is composted back into our beds or into our facility. I was told we could not do that. I was told that we could not compost medical marijuana waste, but there was no clear definition on what that was. I was told anything that has THC is medical marijuana waste, and the entire plant contains THC. So composting leaf, stalk, stems, root balls would all fall into a medical marijuana waste category. Also, a complaint on waste tracking is I have to double record my waste in metric, as well as separate sheets that are required for OMMA inspection on waste that's recorded and what is distributed to disposal facilities. I wanted to ask if there is any definition on waste, because we do solventless processing and our water contains THC. Our water contains microns of, anywhere from 5 to 44 micron. And that wastewater would be considered something that would need to be disposed of properly. We have been watering this wastewater back into our beds. all of our leaves, stalk, stems are composted. And so what I would like to be able to do is to take our material from what we've washed from bubble hash and be able to compost that back into our beds, just like we would normally. In a way, I'm being regulated on my cultivation practices and processes. And it just doesn't seem fair. Now I have incurred costs for waste disposal and additional tracking when there's no clear definition of waste in any of the regulatory verbiage.
Okay. This is obviously another area that we need to clarify. Yeah. Okay. I think he's skipping you, John Kumbis. I don't know why.
He'll be next.
Shocking, actually.
He'll be next. My name is Lynn Hughes, and I'm from Hilltop Gardens, and I've got 3 kind of specific questions. Number 1, do we have to keep hard copies of COAs on file, or can we just refer to that like on Confident Cannabis?
No, you don't have to have hard copies.
No hard copies, okay. Second one is, where do we get written inspection results? We were inspected a year ago, and they said they would mail us a copy of our inspection, and we still haven't received any of that. And I've talked to the other inspector, and I've talked to OMMA, and they said, well, that's all illegal when it got moved over. So I'd like to have a copy, so, for my records.
Okay, I will find that out for you.
Okay, and then my third question is, we get this back and forth was, well, we don't know how to answer that, contact your attorney. Well, there's 10,000 attorneys in this room. Whose attorney is going to stand up in court?
Thank you, Lynn. So, okay, I understand. And we have a lot of new rules, new regulations, new laws, understood. And that issue has come up consistently over the past couple of days with requesting interpretations of our rules. And that's something we will be discussing with our legal team to understand how far we can go. I am a lawyer as well, and even when I get in the room with my legal team, we go round and round, all of us. So we've got work to do, and I thank you. So as far as inspection results, I don't know that they've consistently reached your hands, and that's something we absolutely know that we need to work on happening. Michelle will do a recap at the end of the high level that she's going to take back to her team, so I'm sure that will be on there.
I'm Jeff from Hideaway Farms, and I have another question about retesting material that passed once when we were before the metric switchover, and then we have the same material we had to test again, and it failed, the same as several other people who have talked about that. You mentioned that we could take the reserve sample and send it to another facility to test it. What happens, who updates the COA, the original COA that has a failure on it? Once I send that sample to a new lab, and let's say I just test for that analyte that failed, who updates that first COA? How do I get that compliant so that I can sell that product if it passes the second test, the second 2 retests?
What should happen is that the results of all the retesting go into metric. And if there's 2 passing retested metric, that product is allowed to move forward. There should also be all of the COAs associated with it. And it should be, it's just something I probably need to make sure that the labs understand what it is they're testing and how to document this is a retest on that COA. To be honest, I hadn't thought about the actual physical COA. I've always thought about what we've been thinking about is what's in metric. So if you've got 2 passing in metric, then that product is allowed to move forward. It's in test pass status and is allowed to move forward.
Okay, this is it, then I'm done, I promise. I'm tired. I am really tired, and I hope the SOPs for labs fixed everything, but I'm tired of OMMA's response, best 2 out of 3. Best 2 out of 3. That costs us anywhere from $600 to $900. So I hope it fixes it, but just like he said, if we take I know my formulations and I know what I'm doing. And if I bring it to a lab and they're like, oh, that's not a 10 milligram gummy, John, that's a 450 milligram gummy. Well, I can't sell that gummy, so I have to take that gummy to another lab. But per OMMA, they don't like you using different labs. You have to get permission from OMMA to use a different lab. OMMA would rather, this is from, I don't remember who told me this at OMMA, it was a big wig, it wasn't you. But they said they would rather have the 2 out of 3 passing from the same lab. So we can't just, but I'm just saying it's frustrating. I'm not a big, huge company. I'm a big mouth, but it's a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money. And so I hope we quit normalizing the whole best 2 out of 3. And when your SOP does go into place, who is going to be in charge of making sure that that's correct? Like if I take to lab 1, 2, 3, and I know my formulation that gummy should be anywhere from 9 to 12 milligrams, and it comes to 1 milligram. Like who's going to be in charge of checking that for us? If that makes sense. And that's all I gotta say. I love all y'all, man. I appreciate all y'all. Y'all are killing it. Keep on smoking that ganja because it is good.
That check will be me and my team.
So will you have a lab, or will you, like, let's say that we turn in something and fails, and then we turn it in again, and it passes, then it fails, and we're like, listen, there is none of that in our kitchens. So then are you gonna step in, and are you gonna have like a specific lab that you're just going to use just to quality check?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna share a little information that I don't know if Lee knows I was gonna share, but we are exploring the opportunity of partnering with the Department of Agriculture to start our own state QA lab. And that's what we want to do. So we have to have a minor statute change to do that. So that's one of those things that we are going to ask the legislature to change, because the statute says that we can contract with a third party. We would like to have it be in the state's hands, so then we are accountable to you guys directly. So that's something that's in the works. The Department of Ag is right there by the Capitol. They have space, and it would save us millions of dollars versus the contract that we had, and it would be, it would just help us get miles ahead in a much quicker fashion. So you guys are the first to know. So Tony's saying, let's see what we can do about the same for seed to sale tracking system.
For better or worse, it'll be in my hands, the quality of testing. I'll truly be able to spearhead how things are done in this state. I hope by forcing me to pick this microphone up, I come across as somebody that actually really cares and wants the very top-notch testing performed in the state, things tested at the right time for the appropriate reasons, and that the results are reliable. So having me be directly driving this quality assurance lab, I hope we'll get there in a rapid time frame. So thank you.
Again, I'm Tessie. So I'm going to switch a little gears from the lab. In the past, and nobody's brought this up today, so I wanted to kind of bring it up. When we submit our license for renewal, it says, that we have to have our background checks and these things within so many dates of that. So my presumption is from the day I submit, it has to be within that 60-day window or whatever it is. But I've been rejected numerous times because it's come to the 90 days and OMMA's looked at it and said, oh, well, you're not 60 days from within. It should be 60 days from the day I submitted that application, and I've had to repeat and have new background checks done because OMMA didn't get to it within those 60 days. Is that something that you guys are working on, solidifying that those dates have to be from when the application was submitted? 30 days. Yeah, 30 days or whatever it is.
I'm going to hand the microphone over to Adam Rogers.
Well, this is awkward. So the dates for the background check, your certificate of good standing, that stuff, it's got to be 30 days within the initial submission.
Yes.
That's it.
And I've been
if it gets rejected and comes back, that doesn't matter. It's only the initial submission date. So that's it.
Okay, because the last time I had, it was 3 months. I got rejected because my certificate of good standing was 30 days more from that day.
From that initial submission date?
But it wasn't from the original submission date. I mean, like everything I pulled right before I submitted.
Okay.
And it was then expired at the time they looked at it.
Okay.
And so I was just making sure, because, I mean, it's happened numerous times. I always thought, OMMA needs a little more time, so they're finding a reason to reject me. That's just kind of my assumptions.
Was that the only reason that it was rejected?
Yeah, the only reason was that my I needed a new background check because they said it was expired, but it wasn't from the time I submitted, and my certificate of good standing.
Is this application still in processing?
No, it came through.
Okay.
It came through. Yeah, eventually. So I resubmitted and then it went through.
Okay. No, it should only be from the original submission date, and we are planning a training with our staff to make sure that they understand that, and continue to try to improve those processes.
Okay.
So if there is that mistake, is there a way for us to get refunded? Because we had to get 2 new background checks because we failed on the same thing.
Unfortunately, no. It says in our rules that there are no refunds. But if you contact us, and I'll hand out my card, as many as I have left. If you contact us and let us know, hey, I don't agree with this rejection, and it comes through the contact form all the time. They go mainly to a guy named Jeremiah. He's our assistant manager, and he will go and pull them and look at them immediately so that we're trying to get you guys taken care of.
She was saying a refund on the background check that they, if there's
I don't have any control over that. I'm sorry.
If there's human error, we can identify that, and we can identify that. We do need to do something about
And
it.
I spoke with the young lady over there, I think, but after the last one. So I made her aware, and she and I discussed that very.
Did she take down some of your information?
No, I'm sure everybody.
Okay.
So if there's human error on our side and we can confirm that, then I will say we will figure out a way to make you whole. We'll figure it out. I mean, if we can confirm that it's human error on our side.
Sometimes through these things, someone's asked a question or made a statement, and it's been like a one-off. Well, that human error only happened that one time. And so, I mean, we days of making changes and educating the staff and all of that. So some of them, yes, are one-off, but things like this, like legitimately happened to us. 2 people sitting in this room of 75 isn't a one-off. It's a continual thing. So just, that's why I made the statement to acknowledge the fact that some things aren't a one-off and it does need to be handled and addressed.
Okay, I had one more comment. Sorry, that's okay. Now I lost the train of thought. I'll come back to it.
Sherry Roberts again. Hey, we had a question on the new rules. I think it came out that you were going to have secret shoppers and that you were going to get a product and test it. And we know from being in multiple dispensaries that a lot of them don't have AC. They don't keep their stuff. We don't know how they store our stuff. So what's going to be the process if you get a sample of something and it comes back with mold or something's wrong with it, but it wasn't that way when we sold it to them? How are you going to track that back, and what's your process of handling a product that's not good once it's been stored in a dispensary?
This was a bill that passed last session that is in the queue for us to create rules around, and I'm going to hand the mic to Barrett to expand on that. Hand the really cool mic.
Is that as far as you could reach? Good Lord. Hello, yes, it's Barrett again. I work at OMMA. So the secret shopper bill passed on an emergency basis and was signed by the governor and became effective immediately, but the statutory provisions that were implemented by that bill did not become effective until January 1 of 2024. So in anticipation of that going into effect, we are at this point in the planning stages on planning how we're going to do that. But the bill, as it is stated, says that we employ secret shoppers who go into dispensaries and they purchase enough product to homogenize into 5 samples, 4 of which are to be sent out to 4 testing labs, one of which is supposed to be, if we can do it, the original testing lab. Based on the results of that testing, the bill basically provides 2 different circumstances if the testing at one of those testing labs or more of those testing labs conflict with the original COA. So in the first instance, if all 4 results conflict with the COA, then the bill says we're to immediately initiate a recall. If less than 4 of those, so if 3 or less of the 4 samples that we sent out conflict with the original COA, the bill says that we are to initiate an investigation. And that's about as specific as it gets in that instance. But what we're doing right now is trying to game plan what we're going to do if we get, let's say, 2 of the samples conflict with the original COA. What's the game plan on how we investigate that moving forward, and then who is ultimately responsible for that? So what I can say is that the investigation isn't going to be, gee whiz, 2 of these samples conflicted, let's go shut down that processor who made that product, for instance. It's going to be an actual investigation to figure out what went wrong and when and where and what we need to do about preventing that public health risk.
Sorry, can I just question, I'm sorry, what conflict are you going to be looking for? Because we could send our sample to 4 different labs and all 4 of them get different samples. So what exactly is there a range of conflict, or what are you going to be looking at?
I mean, I don't want to be too broad about saying this, but there's not going to be a limit on the scope of that investigation. I mean, obviously, it should probably start at the labs where we had a conflict of testing with the original COA, but there's no limit to moving downstream or upstream from that point, if that makes sense.
We were just concerned about how stores are taking care of the dispensary and coming back on us. We had good product, good testing. You could probably go to 20 other dispensaries and it turned out fine. Somebody maybe that didn't store it right. That's all.
Right, flour is going to be even harder because as soon as they have it, it starts degrading. Right. It'll never be the same
again, the whole process of taking the samples and sending it out to the labs is what the statute requires us to do in this set of circumstances. So I can't send, like in January 2 of 2024, we can't send a secret shopper out and not follow the law as to what happens when we collect those samples, if that makes sense. But I don't know if this is an assurance or not, but we're not just blindly going out and being like, oh, here we go, here's a sample, here you go, testing lab, oh no, it came back false, if that makes any sense. I mean, we're gonna look at the facts and follow those to where they lead. If it leads to a lab has unsafe testing products, then Lee and his team will initiate an investigation and we'll see where that goes, if that makes any sense.
I think
Oh.
everybody in this room is probably familiar with the Cowboy Cup and what happened this year. I was a connoisseur judge for that competition where we had 30+ samples that were tested at independent labs that were all rejected for mold failures in the competition. So, I mean, this has been reflected to everything from improper storage to transportation. There were manifests showing transfers of all of this product, and now there are multiple growers in Oklahoma that are feeling as though their businesses are in jeopardy with some of these things that have been put national on that recognition level. So I think there's some of everybody's concern on that.
That goes down to how the lab stores these reserve samples. There's no accurate way for them to store it on a long-term basis. Great. Or they may store it in a humid environment.
Can I ask you guys something? Did any of you talk to your legislators about this? Any of you? Christy for the win, thank you. This was a bill that I'm gonna tell y'all some inside baseball. It was pushed by a licensee that has a lobbyist. Nobody in this room. But we were asked for feedback on how we would implement, and we weren't super excited about we don't see the impact that this bill would make. It's not the number one thing we want to be doing with our time, and they were throwing plenty of other bills at us this last session. So it was, I'm just saying this to say, from where I stand, this is one of those that the impacts were not all thought out, and it could. Am I doing too much here? Am I making enemies at the Capitol? Well, well, hey, the person who wanted this bill to pass is also a licensee. I'm a government employee. Like that's not. You guys own businesses and have opinions on how that bill would affect you. So takes a phone call, an email to your legislator. Do I have money?
That licensure has a lobbyist. So that licensure has a lot of money in his back pocket that's paying that lobbyist.
You guys can think that, or you can listen to my advice, and all of you in this room could actually call your legislators. As a whole, you guys are 11,000. Okay. I think if they heard from their actual constituents telling actual mom and pop stories, it will sink in. It's with everything. And I'm not your magic fix. That's what I'm here to tell you. Go for it.
If you push this bill, I'll push this bill. Right. And that's the problem.
So kind of to your point about advocating for you, I mean, I could put on a suit, much like the one I'm wearing right now. Adria could put on a suit, and we could go to every single legislator's office, and we could advocate for every single point that you just made. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a legislator that doesn't live in Oklahoma or Tulsa County, if you're out in the rural counties, those guys their phones are ringing multiple times a day from their constituents who are telling them horror story after horror story of how the marijuana industry, as they see it, affects them in a negative way. If they're not also hearing stories from business people that own cannabis businesses that say, hey, I own a cannabis business, I pay my taxes, I live in your district, here's how the laws negatively affect me and my business, then, I mean, how else are they to view the industry? So, I mean, I can't go advocate for you because we're a government agency. That's just not our role. But all that to say, I mean, it's part of how you can impact policy is by spinning that, telling a narrative, an alternative narrative to the one that they're hearing right now to your reps and your senators as a constituent, if that makes sense. I should really stop saying if that makes sense. It does make sense.
Do you? But I think that, I guess, big picture, as the director of OMMA and as the executive team and leadership that we have in this room, we are, there's nothing in us that wants to see you guys fail. I will say that. We do not go out there and say, yeah, screw them over. We are supportive of you guys. We are not going to advocate for things that would hurt you. When they ask us, how would this impact the industry? We say, we can suggest, okay, this is who you need to talk to. You need to talk to growers or processors or dispensaries. A lot of times they don't even think of the basics of who they need to talk to. And that's what we can do is say, talk to the people in your district that are actual dispensary owners, or, you know, we can lead them down the right path. That's how we try to help. So anyway, we'll keep trying to help as much as we can. But with the understanding of there's a line that we try really hard not to cross. And I think you guys will understand, because if there were ever a line that we crossed and you guys didn't like it, you would understand. If it was, 6,000 of y'all had one opinion and 5,000 had the other, you really wouldn't want us crossing it.
Hello, Tyler from Sap Extracts. Just got a couple things. One, the first thing is, what does OMMA plan to do to be consistent in these type of discussions? I think we all can agree that consistency in this industry is what drives us. If we're not consistent, then we're not good. So what does OMMA have planned in the future to continue these discussions? And then secondly, what can we do to get the legislators and the people that make these decisions for us in these spaces and in these rooms, or as well transferring the same feedback and input to those legislators through programs like this?
Those are great questions. We are going to continue all the conversations. I don't have a date to give you at this moment, but the plans for this year, for 2023 alone, we're going to be doing web options. We are going to continue planning our conference. We are going to do statewide listening tour. What am I forgetting? We're going to do some roundtables specifically for labs. What? OMMA Ed, the conference, yeah. So we have a lot of things coming up this year that you will see in all the places that you saw this advertised. So that'll be social media, email, website. As far as legislature, one thing that I just thought about is just making sure that you don't dismiss, no matter what people say or naysayers say, don't, you missed it, don't dismiss your voice. I'm just picking on you, I'm sorry. Don't dismiss your voice and let anyone else speak for you. And I know I sound like Pollyanna right now, but I have worked with legislators for years, and you can't just you can't trust that one person has your best interest. If there's a loud voice, don't let that be your voice. Speak for you and your business. If all of you do that, it will make an impact. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
I just wanted to finish that conversation. I don't think there's anything wrong with that logic of wanting to go in a dispensary and test that. I think that's awesome that you guys are wanting to do that, because I have heard that a dispensary might take my packaging and put something else in it. So 100%, I don't think there's anything wrong with that logic. So I want to get that out there, because you were asking about why we didn't talk to our legislature. I think that they should be accountable for how they're storing our stuff and what's in our packaging and all that stuff. I just am worried about them doing the wrong thing and something coming back on us when we've done all the right things. That was my point in that. So just wanted to clarify that.
No, I'm glad you did. And the only reason I said that, I think the intent of the legislation was actually about labs, wasn't it? Yeah. So I think the point of that bill was to test out lab standards, they weren't really focusing on dispensaries when they wrote it. So we'll have to see how that all flushes out when it comes time for rulemaking.
Hi, I'm Janice Dolans. I didn't know if I could ask a question that's not about processing, even though we're in the processing session. I was curious about smart greenhouses and why we cannot call them indoors. If it's a closed, tightly controlled environment that literally just has a roof that lets in the sun and sidewalls that let in the sun. And thank you. I've had multiple clients ask me this question, and a greenhouse is a greenhouse. You grow something in it, it's greenhouse grown. But I understand where they're coming from, because the market considers it two different price points. And that's important to people's bottom line.
Are you referring to the tiered licensing system set to come into effect June 1 of 2023?
Yes, like there's rules about what the greenhouse is, structure. If you could talk about that.
So I can't talk a ton about it because I didn't write it, but the bill basically says if there is any sort of light deprivation at all, it's considered indoor and it is tiered by square feet. And if there is no light deprivation at all, if it's just outside, it's an outdoor grow, and the tiering is done by acreage.
So then you're saying that there's no greenhouse?
There is greenhouse, kind of.
Category.
But no, there's not.
Right,
There's no
just going from
greenhouse
indoor
category. There's
to
not
outdoor.
a building. There's not a hoop house, nothing. If it is light deprivated in any respect, it's considered indoor for the purposes of tiering the license and calculating the fee on the basis of square footage.
Okay, and just a thought on that. There's a difference in those quality products. So OMMA should maybe think about that industry advisory committee talking to you about why it's important to not do that. Because a hoop house that is light dep is not indoor.
Whether or not I agree or disagree with you.
I'm not talking about you specifically, Barrett.
I-
I'm talking about the OMMA, understanding
Yes.
the differences between the products and how that impacts the business's bottom line.
Sure.
It is very important to look into, I believe.
Don't disagree, but what we're talking about right now is literally just calculating the fee due upon application for indoor versus outdoor
Yes.
grows, tiered by square footage or by acreage. But your comment is well taken, certainly feedback that we will absolutely consider moving forward.
Because otherwise we don't distinguish, yeah.
Right, that's the only distinction currently in state statute or our rules between, or not, it's not even current, it's on June 1, 2023. Yeah.
Future looking. Not yet. Not yet. That'll come because it'll be forced to happen because of that bill, House Bill 2179. Otherwise, right now, there is no distinguishing. That's gonna be more along the lines of building codes, and that leads me to introduce people in the back that have been waiting to talk. We've got our state fire marshal and LP gas commission. We can come back to that, but we kind of strayed way far from our structure. And so I want to give some state, it's amazing that they showed up. They're the only invitees that are state level officials that showed up. We invited legislators, we invited other state level officials. And I want to point out that the state fire marshal, Keith Bryant, he is the actual state fire marshal, is here. From LP Gas Commission, we have, and shit, somebody, microphone. I have forgotten his name, but he's a nice gentleman, and they are here, and they are going to answer some questions for you. Nick is his name.
Nicholas Nadeau.
She said, I'm Keith Bryant, State Fire Marshal. With me today, Anthony Reed, Daryl Beebe, two of our agents. Daryl specifically does a lot of the plan review for marijuana facilities. He's kind of taken that on as his specialty with our agency. So any questions related to processing, extraction, probably better Daryl that address those. But real quick, I know there's a lot of people that were here this morning, so I don't want to be too repetitive, but we're covered. Our agency is under Title 74 state statute, which basically tells us that we're in charge of enforcing the minimum code for the state as set by the Oklahoma Uniform Building Code Commission, OUBCC. They adopt the code. It's codified in the legislature. We enforce the code. Our interest in the marijuana industry, medical marijuana industry, is safety of the buildings. So we look at it as we would any other building. Most grows, as I said this morning, are considered factories in the property classification. So that's any codes that are specific to or apply to factories apply to medical marijuana grow facilities. Dispensaries would be considered retail or mercantile classification. So we look at them as pretty much we would like a Dollar General store or something like that. So that's where we're at with it. If there's any questions specific to permitting, I answered a lot of those this morning. If there's anything specific to extraction and processing, we got people that can answer that. So, and then Nick can speak to LP gas issues. So.
Nicholas Nadeau, I'm the Deputy Chief Administrator. I'm over all the field operations. So I will be the one coming out to do inspections. Our main focus and goal is public safety, your employee safety, OMMA's personnel safety. We have come into having our own permit for this, get into kind of piggybacking off of the State Fire Marshal's office. I'm going in making sure they've got a certificate of occupancy. There's a lot of confusion between a COC and a C of O. Big confusion there. You've got some cities, which they have now changed. I'll let Chief Bryant talk about this a little bit, but some cities at one point in time before this year was able to pick and choose off of the list of inspections they want to do, which was mainly life safety and plan reviews. It left out the fire suppression, fire detection, access control, CO2, which is permitted completely different, which a lot of you guys have. That all has to be permitted through the State Fire Marshal's office. As I come through with all 77 counties, I'm not saying they don't know what they're doing, but it's outside their scope of normal daily functions when you get into these labs. When you start involving C1D1 labs, that's where we come in. Takes me roughly anywhere between 2 to 6 hours to review one site as far as a technical report on the extraction equipment and the C1D1 booth. Me and Daryl's got many hours on the phone talking late night. You're not going to be held up by us for the most part. I know Daryl works till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, as do I, looking at plan reviews, other than our daily operation functions. So I'm here to answer any kind of questions, any kind of permit questions as far as us. But you guys just throw it at us and we'll do our best to answer your questions.
How is it determined what category we fall into? Is every farmer under the same category of manufacturing, or is it just specifically us?
Well, who determines? Now we're getting into
So
there's an international code council. Okay, they meet periodically.
Right.
They make revisions to building code, fire code. Okay. States then at their level adopt those codes for their state. And again, like I said, the legislature codifies that. The OUBCC, just to be clear, adopts the minimum code for the state. Okay, cities, especially the bigger the city, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, they can exceed or they can go further or more stringent than the minimum code. They can't go below it, but their city councils, what have you, can go above it. But that International Code Council, the one that adopts or sets code, basically puts industries, what have you, in the various classifications. That code apply, that classification, whatever code applies to that classification. That's how. So I guess I don't know how they specifically determine that medical marijuana grow operations fall as a factor. A lot has more to do than the facility and what goes on there than the actual product. If that. So I think I said this morning, I used the analogy of dog food. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you have certain functions, your building does, is for a specific purpose, is more how you get classified than what you're producing.
For us, in our specific, and I know not everybody's the same, but we sincerely grow the same vegetables. The vegetables were grown in the greenhouse that now the cannabis is growing in. No shift, no change. It's all natural, no chemicals. So to grow vegetables for the farmer's market, I did not have to be inspected. To grow pot, I do. Cannabis, I do. I'm just trying, I know it's not your personal choice, but as far as us needing to figure out how we, the farmer, and I know I'm in processing now, but the farmers should be held to the same standard as other farmers.
So this is the point, debate, or whatever, of whether you should be considered agricultural versus a factory. Is that what I'm
Thank you.
getting?
Yes. Thanks for summing it up into 2 words.
Again, I think a lot of it has to do, and I know we can get back to the same things, that maybe people that grow vegetables indoors and for commercial purposes use the same processes, lighting and so forth, as you do. That would be a legislative probably issue more so than, I know. But again, you guys have any better response than I've given her?
And also NFPA 1, which is pretty much the godfather of fire code. NFPA 1, chapter 36, is that right, Daryl? Technically pulls out marijuana grows and processing. So it's identified as a factory, as an industrial deal. So where the tomato plants, cauliflower and all that stuff is not. So I think that's a big deal, is NFPA has pulled this industry out and said, hey, chapter 36 says this is what you got to abide by. And then you get into NFPA 54 and 58, 49 CFR, which we regulate, which says you must be in a C1D1 environment. And that's transferring liquid gas. So, and then that's when it comes into building and fire codes and IFC and IBC. They've actually got that in there. So it's more of an international issue than I would say your local government. Chapter 36 NFPA 1, I believe. Is that right, Daryl? It's a NFPA book that I don't use a whole lot, so.
Add to that. Also, and this is fairly new, NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, which has a big part in code development and standards. But NFPA 420, this is their standard, okay? NFPA 420 specifically deals with cannabis facilities. So that might be good for you to have to reference. Go online, just NFPA 420. You can download a copy.
So this is more of a question, I guess, for the OMMA director. So is there any way to get with legislatures who are actually submitting all these bills and have a roundtable conversation like this with the legislatures? Because it's turning around. Every problem that we have is boiling down to legislators not representing the people who either don't pay enough or whatever. So like, it's hard to get a hold of legislators, and even when they do, they don't listen. Like, there should be some way to do a town hall meeting and involve the people actually making the laws, rather than just write it off all the time saying, oh, that's a legislature problem. Like, okay, well, how do we get them in the picture and in the conversation without having to call them and talk to a secretary at their desk and leave a message, and then who knows if they ever get it? Like, there needs to be a roundtable conversation with the people actually making the laws here, not just the people enforcing them.
It sounds by your tone that you think that's our responsibility. But yes, Christy has talked a couple of times about a town hall that she had with Senator Jett. Those things do happen. Legislators are not that hard to get a hold of during legislative session. You can find them all at 23rd and Lincoln in the Capitol building, all often in the chambers. So there are lots of ways to engage legislators. When you see their names by the bills, for example, Senator Bullard, he's from Southeast Oklahoma. The only reason I know that is because I've looked it up, and I've had to work with him on bills before in previous jobs. And I've had to call him and get a hold of him by any means necessary because I've needed to talk to him about things. So it's just, you know, when it was something that I cared a lot about, I made sure I got a hold of him. So it's about what are your priorities? Do you want to talk to him? Do you want to get a hold of him? So I think you guys gathering together, figuring out what the priorities are. I know Senator Jett is someone who has engaged in the cannabis space with Christy. And there are several others that have engaged in the cannabis space specifically that I think have gotten with the trade associations and are doing some things. So those are continuing conversations. But Christy, I'm gonna ask if y'all will take that offline because we're about to wrap up. But does anybody have any questions or comments for the fire marshal or LP gas while we still have them? How many inspectors are there for gas permits? So for the LP?
Permitted. As far as inspectors doing this, it's only on myself. I've only got 5 officers for the entire state I oversee. Of course, we're a non-appropriated state agency, so we didn't have any more funds to add to our manpower. So therefore, I've kind of reorganized our structure internally. Got them doing pretty much my daily job and operations as far as working crashes and fires and stuff and inspections. And I have focused literally on this industry. So you guys, I'm trying my best not to hold you guys up on our permitting process. 35 permitted.
But we know we have over 1,000 licensees, so there are a lot of people that are not permitted. We need to make sure everybody's getting permitted, and I've spoken with your director, thank you, and told her that we would be happy to do an MOU so that some of the funding that is coming through excise taxes and licensing fees is utilized to get you guys the funding you need. Yeah, so we need to make sure that we're doing that to keep everyone safe. We are 5 minutes from 4 o'clock, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap so we can just do some wrapping up and getting out of here on time on our contractual time quickly. No, I don't. I know that Representative Forrest Bennett in the House does sell insurance to cannabis businesses, I believe. That's the only one I know, though, that has any connection. But I don't know any that are commercial licensees. All right, thank you guys for coming. We are gonna wrap up and look forward to doing this again with y'all.